Welcome back, folks. My name's Shane. In today's video, I'm going to try and rank all of my guitars in terms of playability and tone from the least impressive all the way through to my favorite and everything in between. So I'm going to try and focus on playability and tone, the two most important factors. This took me far too long to work out as a guitarist. I used to be enamored by the big brands, the Fenders, the Gibson, etc. But over the years, I've completely changed my outlook on guitars, and I'm so glad I did. So irrespective of the sentimental attachment, I'm going to try and rank these in terms of playability and tone. I'm also going to talk a little bit about value, because value is a very important thing for a lot of people, including myself. So if I'm going to go out and buy a guitar, it has to be playable and it also has to sound great, but it also has to be at a price that kind of makes sense for what it is. So we're going to talk about that on each of the guitars. Now, this video is not sponsored, but a few of these guitars have been sent into the channel a few years ago and so forth. So yeah, I'm going to leave the paid promotion thing on screen just because that's what I do. But anyway, we're going to start this from my least favorite all the way through to my most favorite. And just know, anything in my collection is good enough to stay in my collection. I'm not one of those kind of guys who has guitars all over the wall and all in the cupboard and all that sort of stuff. I just have them all in the cupboard. Probably like most of you watching, there's maybe one or two too many guitars in here. I'm going to be also moving house probably in the next couple of months. So this will be a good opportunity for me to sort of see what's in there, get a good feel for them again, and see whether or not I might be moving anything on. Anyway, we'll get all into that as we go. Let's get into it. First up is arguably my favorite Harley Benton guitar that I've ever played. And I'm a big fan of Harley Benton. Again, they represent great value for money, but this one not only feels great, it also sounds great. And this was the star of the Halloween short film we made a little while ago. But yeah, this is the Harley Benton Fusion T in this beautiful fire mist finish. There's so much to like about this guitar. The roasted maple neck is really impressive. It's one of those necks that feels every bit as good as some of the top guitars in this list. It really does feel great. We get locking tuners, and the pickups are actually really nice, and these are Tesla pickups, and yeah, they're just basically like good quality humbuckers. They've got a lot of top end still, which is nice sort of thick tone, and we get a three-way toggle switch. So it's a very simple guitar to get really great humbucker tones, and as you just saw, we've also got our push-pull pot over here for those sort of split coil tones, which I don't often love on any guitar, but this is really cool. If you know the channel, you know I'm a big fan of Telecasters, and this one has a tele design, but it's got the nice belly cut over here as well. It's contoured here, and it just feels like a really premium guitar, which is why it's the only Harley Benton in my collection. I could have kept any number of different Harley Benton guitars, and sometimes I wish that I did because they're always fun, but this one's an absolute monster. Now, while this might look like a regular Telecaster, obviously the difference being in the pickups and switching system here, but it also has a floating trem. So if you like to use a tremolo arm, this is a really unique electric guitar when it comes to its design. I think the top on this looks every bit as good as more of the premium guitars in this collection, and it wipes the floor with a few as well. So while this is my least favorite of my collection, it's still an absolute pleasure to play, and that's why I've kept it long term. Over to the Pearson Hyper S, and the reason this is second isn't because of its unique design, it's just got to do with the playability side of it. So while this guitar actually plays great, and if you're a righty, it's awesome, you get dots on the neck. This was basically like a pre-production one, so not the actual official launch. The lefties now have remedied this issue, but there were no dots along the fretboard, and I found myself getting lost. So I ended up having to put little dot markers on here to find out where I was in terms of frets. I didn't realize how much I've relied on the dots on the fretboard. So let us know if that's something that you think about or not when you play. I just looked at the dots without really thinking about it. Sometimes if I'm standing and playing, I can see the dots on the fretboard on most guitars, but I do rely on those top fret markers more than I thought. Now, obviously this guitar is completely unique in terms of its body design. It's basically Perspex and aluminium or aluminum if you live overseas. It's made in New Zealand as well, which is awesome. Now, this isn't at all a bad guitar. I'm going to put this above the Harley Benton though, because I do like the tone of this a little bit better. But the headstockless design is, you know, I'm keeping this because it's so beautiful, but it definitely isn't a guitar I would take out and play live a lot. But I love using this in the studio. I've used it for a few videos already, and hopefully it'll show up a little bit more moving forward. But maybe the thing that just does my head in the most with this, and I mentioned it in my review, is the fact that the tuners are towards the base of the guitar under the back here. So this will take you some time to get used to if you're used to, you know, tuners up here like I am. But this is a super beautiful guitar. I love just how different, unique, and interesting it is. They get an A+ for the aesthetics. I think it looks really stunning. Just, you know, I would have loved a lefty neck on here with dots along the top. But again, this was like a pre-production guitar, not an official launch guitar. But these are super cool, and if you're a shredder or you like to play fusion, I'm sure you'd rank this way higher than me, but I'm mostly a blues pleb. So, so you can make your mind up what you think of this, but I'm a big fan of how this looks, and basically anything that's a point of difference now is something that I can really appreciate, and this is no exception. Over to my Maybury Guitars Fishhook S. Now this is made in the UK from reclaimed parts and timber. I think the piece of wood on the body here was a 100-year-old floor joist or something like that. So that's really cool. But the pickups in here are absolutely stunning. They're some of the best humbuckers I've ever heard or played. So if you're looking for some of the sort of tightest sounding humbuckers that give you all the note clarity and definition, these would definitely be a really great choice. And you can buy them separate from the guitar as well. But I love the fact that this is made from reclaimed timbers, but apart from that, it's also very light, which I like too. Now this was a Squire neck originally. This is maybe the slight weak point of the guitar. The neck isn't my favorite out of, you know, all of my guitars, but it's still very nice. It's definitely not as premium as their Fishhook T, which I had and sold a while ago. But the tuners on here are kind of like budget tuners as well. They're a bit like Squire. So I may upgrade those at some point, but this guitar is an absolute monster. I've played this live a few times already, and people go, man, what is that? It looks super cool. And it's the Fishhook S, S for Strat style. And the body material on this up close, or the finish I should say, looks really stunning. So if you're looking for a guitar that has sort of like a relic design and something made from reclaimed timbers, parts, plastics, all that kind of stuff, give these guys a look. It's a super cool guitar. And again, it's one of my go-to humbucker guitars on my videos. I really love the sound of it. All right, up next is a guitar I hardly play, and it's probably gonna be on my chopping block before I move. This is my Gibson Flying V. Now, while I'm a huge fan of a Gibson Flying V, I'm just not a fan of trying to play this seated. Some people like to play the Gibson Flying Vs like this. I'm just not used to that. I prefer to play this standing up, and which is why you basically never see this on the channel. I've sort of got mixed emotions about keeping this or not, and while it is above the other guitars in terms of still being one of my favorites, it gets used arguably the least out of all of them, sadly. It's a really beautiful guitar. Now, when this is set up properly and all that kind of stuff, it plays great. I love the high fret access up to the end of the fretboard here. I love the burst bucket pickups. My favorite Gibson humbuckers of all time, burst buckers, and in this, it's great. I also love the fact that we get 2 volume controls and a single tone control, and that's all you really need. You know, a lot of people never use the second tone control, especially on the neck pickup. It just seems a little redundant. So having one there if you need it is cool. It's this one right here. The other thing I don't really love about this guitar is the jack being on the front here. It's sort of a bit of a bummer. I much prefer having the jack under a guitar, and I get it on a Flying V, that might not look cool or whatever, but those right angle jacks that come out have always been a little problematic for me, and I've had so many of them over the years. If they move a little bit sometimes, you lose signal. I've just never been a huge fan of them, so I always go for just the standard jacks, but it is what it is. This guitar is really great, and it plays better than the other ones listed so far, and I think it also sounds better. And at the time I got this, it was pretty good value. It wasn't thousands and thousands of dollars. It was a few thousand, but not as much as they're currently going for. So who knows? I might keep this because I always aspired to get a Flying V, being the massive Albert King fan that I am. Where is he? Oh, he's not on the wall. He used to be on the wall. I change it up from time to time, but anyway, it's a great sounding guitar. It just comes in this case, which looks like a coffin. But again, if you're a fan of, you know, the blues masters from back in the day, or Lonnie Mack, or any of these other guys, man, or Hendrix, Flying V is an absolute no-brainer. And this, as much as I love the smell of it, it's definitely not one of my most played or favorite guitars by a long shot anymore. Over to the Vola Oz RV TNC. This is made in Japan, and this is by far the most versatile guitar in terms of pickup combinations. It basically gives you everything. It has a humbucker in the neck and one in the bridge. It's a rail style humbucker. kind of similar to the Danny Gatton pickups in my 52 reissue Telecaster. You can split it. You can get all the traditional kind of Strat tones if you use this push-pull over here, but it also allows you to get a buzz-free humbucker experience as well. Now this guitar has, I think, something like 10 pickup combinations, push-pull pots, all that kind of stuff. It will basically do everything. I think it also has an option where you can get neck and bridge pickup on its own, either split or in humbucker mode. So maybe there's 12. It's just got a lot of different pickup combinations. I've only recently reviewed this. I'm not sure exactly where I'll throw this in on the list, because this is by far the most versatile in terms of pickup switching, and it also represents excellent value. It's nice and light. It's far lighter than any of my Fender guitars. It's kind of like the Kiesel in my collection, but it's much less expensive. It's kind of along those lines. It's a bit of a super Strat. We've got the reverse headstock here, locking Goto tuners, a beautiful roasted maple neck. It comes with all the premium upgrades that I think a lot of people will love if they're looking for a modern Strat style electric guitar. And as far as the Vola guitars go, they're really beautiful. I've played quite a few, and this one is the latest one to hit the channel. If you missed the review video on this, I'll link it down below. But yeah, it really does play great. 22 frets. And one of the interesting things about this that none of the other guitars have is, say you've got your volume and tone control on, or you've got your volume down, there's a kill switch here, basically sort of just puts everything to 10. So it's a really quick way of being able to go from maximum volume and tone down to wherever you've got your control set, or vice versa. So it's got a mahogany body. It really is quite beautiful. And it comes in a really great hard case. Now, value for money, again, I think this is right up there with the best of the best in this collection. No questions about it. Vola guitars, I think, are still somewhat underappreciated, but if you're looking for something a little bit different that's light and extremely versatile, this is a great choice. Now, if you know my channel, and I've probably mentioned this a few times already, I'm a big fan of fat necks. This isn't that fat, but it's still very playable, very comfortable, and it just feels super slinky in the hand. And again, it's a super Strat with a good point of difference being that you basically get 12 or so different pickup combinations. It's quite impressive in that regard. But I haven't had this long enough to give it a definitive spot in the collection, but I'll throw it in wherever you see it, just as a sort of like first impressions. But yeah, what a beautiful guitar, man. It really is something else. All right, now we're getting into the upper echelon of my guitar collection, stuff that's been around for a while, and also stuff that I love playing. The value's there with this. It might be the best value out of all of them, almost. We're going to talk about the next guitar, but this thing here is an absolute monster. It's outlived all of my Gibson Les Pauls over the years. It plays and feels every bit as good as my custom shop R6 or whatever it was back in the day. I had a custom shop VOS, that's what it was. And in a blindfold test, just in terms of feel, this felt exactly the same. And it's about a quarter of the price back in the day as well, which was amazing. The only place they really skimped with this guitar is the switch. The switch isn't great. It's one of those sort of cheap kind of switches. Even though the guitar's made in Japan and everything about the build quality is amazing, the switch was never that good. So I had that replaced. I put a high pass filter in it, and it just brought out the tone of the pickups. I've never had the pickups replaced in this guitar. I thought about it at one point in time. I ended up putting a high pass filter in. It made the world of difference. So if you're struggling, you know, with some guitars, when you turn down, it gets a bit muffled, put a high pass filter in or have someone do it. It makes the world of difference. Tuning stability on this is also great. Even though it's basically a Les Paul, I don't really have the inherent issues I've had with other Les Pauls. Like, I tune it up on my old Les Paul, I'd play a chord and it would sound out, and then I'd check my tuning and it was fine. Or I'd bend and it would just go out of tune. And I don't feel as, I guess, burdened by the fact that this wasn't thousands and thousands of dollars. It was a great deal back in the day, and it's still going strong. My only sort of nitpick in terms of playability with this is, like most Les Pauls, it's heavy. It's a beast, so I don't often use it for long periods of time anymore at gigs. I prefer to play the next guitar if I want a similar sort of sound, but with a more playable experience. But this guitar is great. Check out Tokai guitars if they're in your location, anywhere you're watching. And let us know if you've got one, because yeah, the Tokai stuff is absolutely beautiful. Made in Japan, just comes in a beautiful case as well. It's killer. And yeah, I love this thing. It's definitely one of my favorite humbucker guitars. Over to my PRS SE Custom 24, a guitar that I played more than any of my others for a very long period of time. This is made in Korea. It was the first run of these back in, I think, 2017 or 2018. I borrowed this from the shop to do a review. I took it back and then bought it the next day. It's that good. I did change the pickups, but I'm actually thinking of putting the originals back in. You know, I got an opportunity to demo these pickups, and so I put them in thinking, you know, this will be great, and they've been fine, but the stock pickups were always really nice sounding to my ear. I didn't love the push-pull thing. I think PRS maybe make the worst push-pull system tone of any of the companies. Even Harley Benton managed to make that split coil sound better than PRS SE. So yeah, I don't know what they're doing there. You just used to click up on the tone control, I think it was. Your volume would drop and it would sound really not very inspiring, but the stock pickups sounded great in humbucker mode. They're really quite beautiful, and I've still got them, so I may put them back in, but this guitar represents the best value for money out of all of them. It really does. It's pretty light, and while it's got this wide, thin neck that I never liked when I first played it, I've come to really love it. And the tuning stability is great, the whammy bar works, it's got one volume and one tone control, and it's an absolute pleasure to play. I think this was the guitar that really started to change my mind on trying other things and appreciating different types of guitars, because 24 frets and high fret access like this is great. This is maybe my go-to guitar anytime I'm looking for great tone, great playability, and also its value is right up there. It's just an absolute beast when it comes to what you get for the dollar. Even the new Made in Indonesia ones, while I didn't think much of the first series of those, the second series onwards were much better, but this Made in Korea one's really cool. So if you've got a Made in Korea one, you've got yourself a really beautiful guitar. It kind of feels like, you know, any chance some companies get to cut costs with certain things, they do. And I noticed the difference between the Korean one that I've got and the first run of Indonesian ones, but then they got good. So, you know, that's just my experience with them. But this guitar is so great. It comes in a really great gig bag. It's just really playable, and it not only feels great for playing chords, but again, that high fret access is just really something special. And we're getting into the guitars now that could almost go in any order, because this could go ahead of the next one, it could go before it, which it probably is. But yeah, I can still highly recommend these. Even the Carlos Santana ones from a few years back, just beautiful, great value guitars. And yeah, I think if you're looking for a dual humbucker guitar that's a little bit different from your Les Pauls, you know, it's lighter, it's more playable, it stays in tune better, PRS is the way to go. Over to the best Strat I've ever owned. This is a Fender American Original 50 Stratocaster. I picked this up a couple of years ago now, and I'm so glad that I did. I purchased this from Sky Music here in Melbourne, Australia. And this is the first lefty that wasn't a high-end custom shop electric guitar that felt like a high-end custom shop guitar and had a really great set of pickups. Now, I've still got the original pickups, but as you can see, I've changed them to lace sensor golds. Now, you might remember a little while ago, I actually changed the pickups to a set of Jeff Beck noiseless. I tried to rekindle the romance I had with those pickups many years ago, but I couldn't. My ear and tone has changed enough, and I put these straight back in, and I found my happy place. A lot of people always say, man, that Strat and with those lace sensors is your happy place. And I would agree. This is a really beautiful guitar. The only sort of ding against it is it's not as playable as some of the ones above it on this list. And while it is a Strat and it's very playable, it's definitely not as easy to play as some of the others that are on this list. I would say even the PRS SE Custom 24, it's a much easier guitar to play than this, and it's cheaper as well. So this is one of those guitars you kind of got to fight to get the feel and the tone and all that out of, but it's a really beautiful guitar. And since putting the lace sensors in, I've sort of embraced my inner Clapton with this. He was the big, you know, inspiration for the white Strat lace sensor combo. And yeah, it's just such a beautiful guitar aesthetically. It comes in a beautiful tweed case. It's got the vintage tuners, which I love. It's so easy to work with once you know how to do it. If you don't know how to do it, it's an absolute nightmare. And I went through that as well. It was a pain in the ass the first few years when I first got vintage tuners. But this is a great guitar, but I can't put it above some of the others on the list. And while this is my only Strat, and it's the best Strat I've ever owned, the other guitars on this list play better, sound better, and maybe don't necessarily represent better value, but I think in many ways they also do. So we're going to talk about those in a moment, but there's only really two complaints I have with this guitar. And while I love the soft V neck, it feels so good in the hand. If you've got big hands like me, you'll get a kick out of this neck. Some people do find this a little bit too sticky, and I just use finger ease when I play this, and it's not a problem. Now the frets. Why on earth don't Fender use stainless steel frets? It makes no sense in almost 2025, the year 2025. Come on, get with the times. But I'm gonna have to replace these frets. They're those kind of soft frets that end up just wearing down way too quickly. And I already had this guitar a few years and I already need a fret job. And I'm just gonna get them replaced with 6105 stainless steel like I did on one of my other guitars, which we'll get to. But while this is a beautiful guitar, it sounds great, it plays great, all that kind of stuff, it is a harder guitar to play than some of my others. And you think maybe a Strat and a Tele should play the same. They don't, kind of, and we'll get to that in just a moment. But it is a beautiful guitar. If you've got yourself an American original Strat, you don't necessarily even need to change the pickups. The stock pickups are just absolutely perfect if you're looking for the sound of a Strat. But I like to record with less noise over more noise, and these felt like the ultimate compromise. This next guitar is made in Australia by a company called Little Crow Guitars in Western Australia, and this is the Corvino SD. The SD and my initials. I actually had some input into this. I got to sort of beta test a whole bunch of different guitars, give them feedback, and then sort of came up with this design, kind of semi-inspired by like Nick Huber guitars in its, you know, aesthetic. It's got the F-hole here, and it's a pickup combination that I didn't have, and I still don't have any other guitar with this pickup combination. So there's a set of Briley pickups, which are Australian-made pickups. We've got our mini humbucker in the neck and an absolute rockin' Telecaster pickup in the bridge. I cut a live album many years ago now. It must be 12 years ago. I'm not sure how long ago it was. Maybe 10. And I used this, and it was some of the best recorded tone I've ever had. And it's still one of my favorite guitars. Now, in terms of just how much I love this guitar, it would be above a few of the others that you're about to see. But I'm talking just strictly about all of those things, you know, the playability, the tone. And while this plays and feels great, I'm definitely not using it right now as much as I would like, and I hope to remedy that coming right up. But this is a beautiful guitar. It's been modded over the years. The neck's been, it used to be a high gloss neck, but we got rid of that. And now it's this beautiful sort of oil finish neck. It's got the Goto locking tuners here. It's super light, and again, I'm a big fan of a Telecaster, which is why we came up with this design. Now I'm going to say I designed this guitar because I didn't. It was all Dave and Viv, but I was just giving them constructive feedback, and I love the little logo here. It's like a coin that's sort of inserted into the headstock here. And I love everything about this guitar, the feel, the tone. It really separates itself from a lot of the other guitars that you've seen up until this point. So this is an absolute beast, and yeah, this is the problem when you've got what I would consider too many guitars. You don't play the ones that you should be playing more, which is why I'm thinking of flipping a few of these. We might make some tough decisions at the end of this video. We'll see how we go, but this is so cool, and this will be a guitar I keep until the end. Over to my Fender American Original 50s Telecaster. I've got two guitars that look very similar to this, and this is the one I'm playing the least, but it's by far the best when it comes to how it feels to play. I'm going to mention why I'm picking the other one in a moment, but the neck on this is better than the Fender American Original 50s Stratocaster. This guitar is also lighter. The bridge pickup is an absolute monster on this guitar, as is the neck pickup. It basically has the kind of tone you want from a Tele with stock pickups. Sort of almost a Stratty neck pickup with the attitude of the bridge pickup. The only real complaint I've got with this guitar is the fact that no matter what I've done with the little top hat selector switch thing that comes on these guitars, I've glued them on, I've crimped the end, I've done everything. They always came off. It drove me absolutely crazy. So I ended up using a Strat switch end on here, and that's been fine. Although I don't love that aesthetically, it is what it is. It's still very functional. This guitar is basically stock, other than the fact I put a hole in it when I first got it, and that's been repaired. It's such an absolute pleasure to play. It feels like an even more expensive guitar than the Strat, and that's a beautiful Stratocaster, but this is the Tele I would still recommend people find on the used market if you're looking for a bargain, because it's a custom shop experience without the custom shop price tag, and that kind of suits me. I don't often like just going entry level with stuff. I like to find something in the middle, and this was arguably Fender's sort of best run of guitars at this price point, at least in my experience playing, you know, hundreds of guitars over the last sort of few years. So yeah, it's a real pleasure to play. It's got the vintage tuners here as well, and the tuning stability on this is great. The playability is just really good, and for whatever reason, this is just an easier guitar to bend and play over the Strat. I love this guitar, but I'm not using it as much as I should. But it still represents great tone, great feel, great playability, and also great value at that particular end of the market. So yeah, I can highly recommend these if you're thinking, you know, about getting one of these, or you know, an older 52 reissue Telecaster. The American Original series absolutely wipes the floor, sort of. We'll get to that in a minute. Over to my 52 reissue Telecaster, and like I mentioned before, I don't think that this is necessarily a better guitar than my American Original 50s Telecaster off the shelf, but I've modded this enough now to make it just playable forever. It's really cool. So a few things I did to this guitar just quickly. I changed the frets, or I had it done for me, the 6105 stainless steel frets, and they play great. They're never going to wear out. Again, it's just one of those mods that Fender should just give you an option of stainless steel frets. I'm going to rant about that forever, but it is what it is. I had the nut changed because the other nut, I think, just evaporated after about 10 years of solid use. And I also had the plate here changed to one of these Rock Rabbit ones. They're slightly angled. I just think it looks cool. And we've got the Danny Gatton pickups here, which are noiseless. Now, these are rail style pickups. They look like, you know, something like Seymour Duncan would make or whatever, but they're actually really low output. They're a vintage output, but they give you great noiseless single coil tones, or you can throw as much drive on as you like and they don't squeal or do anything funny. And for me, that's makes this more playable and useful over the American Original, which I still absolutely love playing. Now, because of the stainless steel frets, this plays better. It just does. It's got a really great feel. Even though the neck's not quite as nice on this, it is a very nice neck. It's slightly thicker than what you'd find on like a, you know, those modern C necks. This is definitely a fatter neck, but yeah, it doesn't feel like as nice of a neck as the American Original down there, but it plays better because of everything that's been done to it. I also got rid of that crappy output jack thing that they put on their Telecasters and ended up putting this screw-in Switchcraft, I think it was called, a little screw-in one, and it's been great. So while this guitar doesn't really represent an off-the-shelf 52 reissue Telecaster, it's heavier than the American Original, but the pickups, the tone, the functionality and playability of this is the best Tele I've got. I can take it anywhere. I don't have to worry about buzz. I don't have to worry about anything. I can throw as much drive on as I like, get over to the Ultra Gain channel on the Marshall DSL back here, and still make it work. And I just don't have to be concerned with squeal or any of that kind of stuff that would come from the single coil pickup. So this is an absolute beast of an electric guitar, and it's why it's almost at the top of my list. All right, I'm sure a few people are going to call me a fanboy or whatever here, but Kiesel guitars are a brand that I only associated with shredders until they got Johnny Highland on board, and then they came on my radar. And the guys from Kiesel were nice enough to build me basically the Johnny Highland signature electric guitar here. And this thing completely changed my mind on like Tele style electrics. This is lighter than both the American Original and the 52 reissue. It plays so much better than both. It's lighter, it's got a more impressive roasted maple neck. We get stainless steel frets, locking tuners, and it just plays itself. This is one of the few guitars I've got where I can play it all night and not get sick of the tone. You know, if you're doing 3 sets or whatever, sometimes sounding guitar can get a little bit boring. I don't feel like that with this at all, and I'll explain why. So we get the neck pickup in position 5 over here, but when we go to position 4, it's giving us neck and bridge. So it's giving me that Telecaster tone. You might assume that all 3 of these pickups are Strat pickups, but the beauty of this is the bridge pickup is a Tele pickup. It's got the steel base plate in the shape of a Strat style pickup. So tone-wise, this is on another planet. It has like a 3D kind of sound to my ear compared to most of my other single coil guitars. It really is just in its own league. I was shocked how much better this was than all of my other Fender guitars over the years. It's not even close. Now, if you were to build this, or say get a Fender custom shop guitar, this would actually be less expensive. But I know already the look might not be for everybody, but I absolutely love this. The finish on the body here is beautiful. Again, the sort of satin finish on this roasted maple neck is in a league of its own. Whether or not I'm using the spray, it doesn't matter. It really does feel great. And it's just being as light as it is makes it super functional. Now, one of the cool points of difference between this and your traditional Telecaster, you know, obviously it's got the modern aesthetic here, and Johnny Highland's given it the nod, which is always a good thing. We get the belly cut, there's a contour on the heel here as well. But we also get, like the Harley Benton I showed you at the start, we've got a floating, well, it's not floating actually, it's hardtail down, which is the preferred way that I like it. So that means without using the whammy bar, it sits flat. If I then go to use the whammy bar, I have to lift it up off the body of the guitar, which is the way I like to use it. So it's not floating like a Strat. If I break a string, it's still going to be in tune, which is great. And when I don't do my double stop bends, nothing's moving down here. So this is one of the funny things about what I do. Sometimes something just completely exceeds your expectations, and this is one of those guitars. There's one I've been using even more, but let's put it into context. So I think this is the most playable 3-pickup single coil guitar I've ever played. It really is that good. It's right up there with the best of the best. I tested at Jerry's Lefty Guitars, but all of the guitars I've had personally in my collection, this absolutely wipes the floor in terms of feel, playability, and tone. It's not even close. All right, I'm sure everyone will be rage quitting, but this is the guitar I've been playing the most, and it's my favorite humbucker guitar. This could be on even kilt with the last one. And yes, it's from Kiesel. So call me what you will in the comments section. Just know I'm not obliged to play anything, keep anything, or all that kind of stuff with my videos. This just all comes from experience. Now, for those who actually attend some of the jam nights I go to, you've seen this and you've seen this more than anything over the last sort of 12 months or more since I've been playing live again. And they both feel so great to play. This is a very different guitar. It's obviously that Tele design with the single coil pickups. This was designed to obliterate my PRS SE Custom 24. And it did. Now, if you know the channel, over the years, I've held a few guitars in high regard. Nick Huber guitars, just the Orca is just amazing. I've also been talking about the Twangmeister guitar. I've also been talking about the Monteleone guitar that's worth about 25 grand that I played a few years ago. And this, look at this neck. This neck is absolutely ridiculous. It's kind of like flamed or bird's eye maple or something like that. It is crazy, and it's the kind of profile that I can play all day. Again, stainless steel frets, 24 frets, so we can get all the way up to 24th fret easy on this, and I try my best to milk that any opportunity I get playing live. It's got a gloss finish, semi-hollow body design, so it's so light. Again, it's lighter than most of the others, maybe with the exception of the Pearson that I've showed you so far. The Maybury guitar is quite light as well, but this is just an absolute pleasure to play. Now these pickups, again, sound like, to my ear, they've got the humbucker tone I really like. They've got clarity, which is sometimes a hard thing to find on certain guitars, but they also have a beautiful attack on the note. You can throw as much drive on these as you like, and you're still going to hear every note, which is pretty impressive. Maybe the only thing I don't love about this, and this is really nitpicking, is the fact that we get a 5-way toggle switch. I don't find myself using the in-between positions, which kind of coil tap or coil split the neck pickup in position 4 or position 2, sort of coil taps this. One of the positions I do like though is both pickups in that split coil mode. So that's kind of cool, but it also cancels the hum, so it's got that going for it. But in terms of like aesthetics, I absolutely love this. I can't believe Kiesel were off my radar for so long, but these are really in a league of their own. And again, I'm not obliged to push anything on you. I'm not trying to do that. I'm just trying to explain and rank all of my guitars in order. Now, again, this isn't anything to do with sentimental stuff. If it was a sentimental thing, my 52 reissue from 2010 or whenever I got it would be my number one. You know, everyone always asks me, what's my desert island rig? I usually say my 52 reissue Telecaster because I'm a big fan of Tallys, but this guitar feels like a guitar that's 50 years older than the Kiesel guitar. The Kiesel Tally over here, this Johnny Highland one, is just unbelievable to play. And it's not even close. This just outplays the Fender guitars. It feels better, it sounds better, and they've sort of addressed the fret problem you might find on some of the Fender guitars. And this This is every bit as good as PRS 10 tops at a price that's not quite as exorbitant. So they're really doing something special. And without question, this is my favorite electric guitar. It's really something special. So there you have it, that's my guitar roundup at the end of 2024. Let us know what you think of this list and whether you saw it coming or not. The older I get, the more I'm starting to appreciate guitars that are just a little bit different. I'm so sick of seeing the same guitars getting released every year from a lot of the big companies, and it's fun to see other companies making better guitars, but also something a little bit different, or refining a classic model and just making it more playable. That's kind of where my head's at these days. But that's my guitar roundup. I would love to strip this guitar collection down to 6, potentially 7. And when I do that, I'll update you. But you can probably get a good sense of which ones will stay just based on the kind of music that I play. And if you know the channel, I'm sort of getting a bit more partial to, you know, the stuff that is sort of inspiring to play, like this, the Kiesel. You know, I'll definitely keep one of my Telecasters. And I had to make some tough decisions coming up. So maybe that'll be a video on its own at a different point. But I'd love to get this down to 6 guitars. I think that would be enough for this guy right here. Anyway, thanks for watching. My name's Shane. I hope you're all doing well, and I will catch you on the next one. See ya.